Donald Trump is absolutely unraveling as he faces an avalanche of bad news and controversies, each more bizarre than the last, from his disturbing alliances with far-right extremists like Laura Loomer to backing North Carolina's Mark Robinson, who proudly labeled himself a, quote, black Nazi. Trump's desperation is on full display. There was one particularly unhinged moment yesterday where he used a Washington, D.C. event meant to address anti-Semitism as a platform to berate Jewish Americans, adding more fuel to the fire. Meanwhile, as Trump spirals, the economy is thriving, with the stock market hitting record highs, and Kamala Harris is surging in new state polls. I think the Lincoln Project put this best, how things are going for the Trump campaign. Campaign update. These are the headlines on the Drudge Report. If you go check it out, Drudge Report, which typically leans to the right, says Biden beats Trump at stock market. Is Harris headed for a blowout? 45 days of MAGA mania. This follows up their headlines from the previous week where they were talking about Donald Trump's relationship with Laura Loomer. The headline stating, Loomer MAGA love. Has he found his soulmate? Where's Melania? MTG calls Don in a rage. Civil war escalates. Campaign crisis. Donald Trump, as I told you before, he was at this event meant to address anti-Semitism, and he really spent it just being completely unhinged, completely deranged, yelling at the Jewish Americans in the audience. For example, here's a clip of him complaining that he only received 24% of the Jewish vote and telling them that they don't treat him very well. Watch this.
I've done for Israel, I received only 24% of the Jewish vote. Now think of this. I really haven't been treated very well, but that's the story of my life. It's true. Think of it.
Then in this other moment, Trump told the Jewish Americans in the room that they should have their head examined.
I say all the time that any Jewish person that votes for her, especially now, her or the Democrat Party, should have their head examined.
Then, of course, Donald Trump has been in even more hot water after his hand-picked pick for the North Carolina gubernatorial race, Mark Robinson, was revealed to run these internet accounts where he referred to himself as a black Nazi, said he supported slavery, said he was into trans porn despite being vehemently anti-trans. This is a brutal montage that was created by the Kamala Harris campaign, featuring Donald Trump's repeated praise of Mark Robinson, including saying that he was, quote, better than Martin Luther King.
Mark Robinson, he's out there, he's fighting.
A very good man.
This is Martin Luther King on steroids. I think you're better than Martin Luther King. I think you are Martin Luther King times 2.
I think he's going to go down as one of the great leaders in our country. I've been with him a lot. I've gotten to know him, and he's outstanding. He's outstanding in presentation, but he's probably even more outstanding in heart. Somebody that we have to be very, very careful. We have to cherish. We have to cherish Mark. He's a star. You have to cherish him. Amen. It's like a fine wine, because that's what you have. You have a fine wine. He's an outstanding person. I've gotten to know him so well and fairly quickly.
And of course, this Republican Party is Trump's party now. They released a statement saying they are officially standing behind the black Nazi with a trans porn fetish. They said, quote, Mark Robinson has categorically denied the allegations made by CNN, but that won't stop the left from trying to demonize him via personal attacks. We see this every time where the Republican Party does not take personal responsibility despite being, quote, the party of personal responsibility. Every time they get in trouble, they just blame it as attacks on the left. But there's copious amounts of proof out there that this is Mark Robinson, and the voters are paying attention. Meanwhile, I guess this is a message that J.D. Vance thinks is going to resonate with voters. J.D. Vance, Donald Trump's running mate, says that he wants Americans to pay more for groceries, clothes, and other basic necessities in order to combat wokeness. He says we're going to have to get a little uncomfortable. We're maybe going to have to pay a little bit more for certain consumer goods.
Where you have to do what woke corporations want you to do to be able to live a decent life in this country. That's not freedom. And so we have to choose. Do we want freedom? Do we want an American way of life? Or do we want short-term satisfaction for every little thing? I think we're increasingly in a situation where we're going to have to choose between one or the other. We're going to have to get a little uncomfortable on some of these things. We're maybe going to have to be willing to pay a little bit more for certain consumer goods. We may even have to be willing to attack some of the companies financially that are waging war on the American people. That's tough, But I don't see any other way out of this except for through it.
Yeah, I don't think that Americans are going to want to pay more for your little culture war efforts. Like, just stop it. Like Tim Walz says, mind your own damn business. Meanwhile, while you have JD Vance saying these things, while you have Donald Trump saying all these crazy things, the economy is soaring. And while the stock market is certainly not a main indicator of the economy on Main Street, it's important to note that the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones just hit the highest levels ever recorded at history, with the Dow closing yesterday over 42,000 and the S&P 500 closing over 5,700. Let's hear it from CNBC.
Oh yeah, look at that. And now it's higher. Yeah. And obviously we've got an S&P. Carl, that's a new record, right?
Oh, the S&P?
Yeah.
This is an all-time high. And I think probably for the Dow as well, right? Above 42K.
And we're seeing a lot of blue in the new Morning Consult state polls. If you go down the list, you're seeing in Arizona, Ruben Gallego up by 14. Scott still leading in Florida by 4. The Republican in Maryland, also Brooks up by 11. In Michigan, Slotkin up by 14. In Nevada, Rosen up by 13. In Ohio, Brown up by 2. In Pennsylvania, Casey up 9. In Texas, Colin Allred up 1 over Ted Cruz. In Wisconsin, Baldwin up 7. The Colin Allred news, him being up 1 in Texas, is sending shockwaves through the GOP, is sending shockwaves through the Donald Trump campaign. They did not see this coming. And while Donald Trump is off living his fantasy world in New Jersey and in New York, saying that he's going to win those states, the Democrats are actually making real ground in states like Florida, in states like Texas. They are putting in the actual work, and the results speak for themselves. The new Morning Consult state level tracking poll also shows Harris surging after the debate. In Arizona, she increased by 1. In Michigan, she's up 8 now. In Nevada, up 4. In North Carolina, she's increased by 2. In Pennsylvania, by 2. In Wisconsin, by 6. Trump in this Morning Consult poll did increase by 1, but it shows overall a massive surge since the debate for Vice President Kamala Harris. Even Fox had to report on the good economic news and the good stock market. Let's hear what they had to say about stock surging.
But is this rally here to stay?
Oh, no. And by the way, the NASDAQ is 700 points from its all-time high. If the NASDAQ doesn't make an all-time high with this news, that is not good. The Dow and S&P, right now, the S&P is at 21 times next year's earnings, assuming $280 of earnings.
Why can't you let us all be happy?
You
We're
can be
all
happy.
making money here.
If you're buying dividend growers, you're going to be fine.
Oh.
But no, this is a very overheated deal, and people should just be aware of what they're paying. They're paying 21 times.
Okay, you think it's going to come down at some point?
Yes, I do.
How much?
I have no opinion about that whatsoever.
But you know it's going to come down.
I think that it's overvalued, Stuart, and it can go higher before it comes lower. But I just think overvaluation always corrects. So I'm making a basic economic statement.
Overvalued on a...
And Fox, of course, has to ramp up straight into propaganda mode. Jessica Tarlov, the one pro-democracy host on their show, The Five, was talking about the allegations against Mark Robinson, once again, who Donald Trump called MLK on steroids, the guy who posted on a forum, that he's a black Nazi. She brought up this story, and Jesse Waters, who has interviewed him multiple times on his show, said, never heard of him.
And what's a really interesting state in there? North Carolina, which is a big target for the Democrats. And we just found out an hour ago that the lieutenant governor there, Mark Robinson, who's running for governor,
Never heard of him.
Who Donald Trump called Martin Luther King on steroids, posted on a porn forum called Nude Africa that he's a black Nazi, expressed support for reinstating slavery, and detailed his sexual arousal from memories of peeping on women in public gyms. And he still fantasizes about it. He also has an Ashley Madison account.
How dare you kink shame?
Sure.
That's a great reaction. So Josh Stein was likely to win that race anyway. If they get Mark Robinson to drop out, his name is still on the ballot. But this makes North Carolina even more in play for Democrats. And this, again, is evidence of the type of candidates that Donald Trump thinks are good for the country. Martin Luther King on steroids, someone who says he's a black Nazi.
But he would obviously.
But what?
Let's state the obvious here.
Yeah.
Do you think Trump actually knew this guy was on porn sites?
My point is that Donald Trump likes anyone who likes him, and he doesn't bother to do the work.
That's called being human.
No, it's not. A lot of people like me who I don't like in return.
Like who?
I don't
Tell
want
us
to.
now.
I don't want to name names.
Go ahead. Let's start with Fox and Friends.
Yeah. Poor Kill
All right,
Mead.
Jessica. Yeah.
All right, Jeff.
I didn't interrupt. I just want to let that be known. Greg interrupted on my behalf.
The king shaming was kind of funny.
I will be going to New Africa in the break to see if that's true.
We could check out this one other poll. The FAU national poll from September 16th to 17th shows Kamala Harris up 4 over Donald Trump. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's attorney is still releasing all these very strange videos. In this video, she's with golfer John Daly, who she says she's with the greatest golfer of all time. I have a feeling Donald Trump might get a little offended by it, but maybe not, because in the video, Alina Habba and John Daly just talk about their love for, quote, Daddy Trump.
The GOAT of golf, who loves Big Daddy Trump.
I love Daddy Trump.
Oh!
Hey, I just got a great future behind me. That's all I got.
We just love our country.
We do love our country.
We love our country! Vote Trump!
And you know what? I think I understand now why Donald Trump says that the stock market is going to crash under President Biden and Kamala Harris. Because I'm looking at the stock market right now, and I'm looking at the Dow Jones, which is reaching records and is soaring every day, past 42,000 for the first time yesterday. Then I'm looking at Donald Trump stock, which is down, crashing, looking like it is heading to zero. So I guess if you're Donald Trump and you run Trump Media and that's your stock, then I guess the stock market is crashing for you. But for everyone else, their 401ks are looking good. They are doing much better off than they were 4 years ago, despite all the gaslighting. Donald Trump is just going to get worse throughout the day. This just keeps piling up and piling up. There's more bad news and more bad news. I know that you want to keep up with all of it, so make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. Help us get to 3.5 million subscribers. I'm also telling you, you got to subscribe to the audio MeidasTouch podcast. It's available anywhere you get your podcasts. It's free. Go in your podcast app. Give us a 5-star review. It really helps. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.